You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. My name is Arya Whitner, and this is your NXT report for Wednesday, April 11th, 2018. Welcome to the post-Takeover edition of NXT, which means, we get a skippable throwaway show full of video packages, but let's jump in anyway, shall we? I'm not going to bother recapping every single video package. All you need to know is that every single match got its own dedicated video package, and they actually started the show with a video package running down the entire show. So they covered it from every single angle. First of all, go watch Takeover, especially the main event. It is, by itself, well worth the $9.99 that you paid for the network this month. I am going to mention any interviews, but there really weren't that many of them, unlike usually when they do these things. But let's start from the beginning with our first match. It was the proper lady of NXT, Lacey Evans, one-on-one with the Pirate Princess of NXT, Kairi Sane. This match was set up last week when Evans cut a promo about how she was a proper lady, unlike Sane among many others. Evans was not liking the fact that she was being outclassed in the ring early and yanked Kairi down by her hair to take over. She hit a slingshot elbow, which looked good, and began sarcastically asking Kairi if she was okay before she laid in forearms to the chest. Lacey got to look better here than on a lot of her matches, including the ones that she actually won. Evans shoved Kairi into the ropes, but Kairi exploded off of them with an interceptor. Sane hit the flying kabuki elbow for a near fall, and the insane elbow for the win. Kathy Kelly attempted at one point to do a promo with Undisputed Era from Saturday Night at Takeover. Before Cole could speak, Roderick Strong whispered in his ear, and they all went back into their locker room. Authors of Pain cut a promo after their Raw debut. Akam said this was not about Paul. This was about how they just destroyed the first ever SmackDown Tag Team Champions in Heath Slater and Rhino. Paul Ellering did walk up and said that he set and he devised all the plans to make them successful, and Razor told him that his chapter has ended. Shayna Bezler was interviewed and said that you don't get to jump on and off her bandwagon. She knows who was with her, who was against her from the start, and she said things will change, and wrestling in the NXT women's division isn't going to be about who gets the most compliments on their hair and outfit. It'll be about who is the best wrestler. They showed Ember debuting on Raw and then doing a promo about how happy and excited she was. She said that her biggest regret is that she left Shayna with the rest of the NXT women's division. Next week, it is Lars Sullivan versus Killian Dane. And then it was already time for the main event because, of course it was. It was Heavy Machinery going 2-on-2 with Riddick Moss and Tino Sabatelli. Moss and Sabatelli are going through the longest breakup this side of Wesley Blake and Buddy Murphy. After 2 years after the breakup, Murphy is finally doing something while Blake is still floundering. Perhaps Moss and Sabatelli should take note of that they're probably better off together than they would be apart. The match began with a four-way brawl with Heavy Machinery got the best of. Knight and Dozovic did a version of the Bushwhacker Stomp before squishing Sabatelli's head in between their stomachs. Excuse me. Anyway, Tino punched Riddick Moss in the back of the head. Actually, that would be weird since they were teammates. Tino actually punched Tucker Knight in the back of the head, and the heels took over. Tucker Knight at one point went for a crossbody to Riddick Moss, but Riddick Moss actually carried him. He caught him on a crossbody and slammed him down, which looked incredibly impressive. Possibly not as impressive as Tucker not using his speed, I guess, to avoid Moss and Sabatelli and making the tag go to Stozovic. Stozovic ran wild on both. I mean, literally running from corner to corner with big splash after big splash before using the Caterpillar on Sabatelli. Suddenly, the former Ring of Honor and IWGP Tag Team Champions of the World, War Raiders, ran in and assaulted all four men. This is, in fact, the former War Machine. They were referred to as Rowe and Hanson, and they decimated both teams and stood tall after using the Fallout on Sabatelli. So NXT loses a team, they gain a team, they lose some mid-carders, and we'll see what happens from there. So that does it for this week. An easily skippable show, unless you want to watch War Machine's debut. But I want to thank you all for listening, and I'll talk to you again in 7 days.
You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.